So today's daf yomi is Gittin's Ayin Hey Gittin 75, and we're going to start on the bottom of Ayin Dalad on the base, and the bottom of 74b. The Gemara tells us Tanan Asam Barishona Ayin Nidman Yom Shnei Masar Chodesh Kidei She'achalot Lo. And at first, as a background, if a person buys a house in a walled city, the person who sold him the house has a year to redeem it. But if he didn't redeem it within the year, then the person who bought the house gets to keep it. So at first, the person who bought the house, what they used to do was they used to hide when it came to the end of the 12 months, so he wouldn't be forced to sell it back, and he'd get to keep the house. So his Hillel Hazakin said that the person who originally sold the house, what he could do is he could take the money and put it in an office in the court via Shovras Adelas and Nechnas. And then he could break into the house when he wanted and go in. And the guy who had bought the house originally, he can just go back and take his money whenever he wanted. So it says, Rava Mitakanasa Shel Hillel Nishma, from Hillel's Takana, we learn that if you say, coming back to our sugya, that if you say this is your get, so as the man says to his wife, this is your get on the condition you give me the 200 sons. And then she wants to give him the money. If he willingly accepts it, then we're going to say she's divorced. But al karcho, let's say he says, I don't want to accept the money, then under those circumstances, she's not going to be divorced, because from Hillel's Takana, we said in that case you can force him to take it against his will. But in the case of the get, you can't be forced to take it get the money against his will. From the fact that Hillel needed to establish this, we see this takana, we see in the scene of Al-Karcha, we see that giving something against somebody's will, from the fact that Hillel needed to institute that giving something against somebody's will, it's a gift, on the top of Ayin Hey Amud Aleph 75 Hey Miklau. The Ba'alma Nesina Balkarcha will have Nesina. We see from here that in general, giving something against somebody's will is not going to be considered a gift. So Ma'azke for Rav Papa, Vitem Rav Shimi Barashi. So we see from here that Nesina Balkarcha is Lav Nesina, that giving something against somebody's will is not valid. Rav Papa challenges it. Some say Rav Shimi Barashi, V'delma Ki Yitzchak Le'lo Tikunei Shelo B'fanav. Maybe Hillel needed to make this takana not in the presence of this person, meaning to say Shalom B'fanav, then you can't give it against his will. B'fanav, but maybe if it was in his will, in his presence, maybe died to be the having the sinner. In his presence, then we would say, maybe died to be whether he agreed or he didn't agree, it would be considered a gift. So it's not a strong proof for what we tried to say that Nesina Balkarcha is Lav Nesina, that giving something against somebody's will is not Nesina, because maybe the case of Hillel was different. An alternative version of this is Amarava Mitakana Shel Hillel, from the Takana of Hillel. We learn Areza Gittin Chamanash Atin Matayim Zuz Binasnel Bemidad Ben Bakarcho having a Sina. From the Takana of Hillel, we learn that it is a gift against somebody's will. Why? Because when does Hillel have to make the Takana? Only Shalom B'fanav, only when he's not there. But if he'll be there, Bemidad Ben Bakarcho having a Sina. If he be there, then even against his will, it would be a gift. And so by a get, we could say even in this case of the get, even against his will, it would be that she'd be able to give him the money. So ask for Rav Papa, Vitem Rav Shimon Barashi, V'dem Afilu B'fanav Nami Midatu in Al-Karcho. But maybe no, maybe even in his presence, you can't give it against his will. The Hillel by the Yitzchak Hillel only instituted the case that he was talking about where the guy wasn't there. But how do you know that Hillel wouldn't say, but how do you know that Hillel wouldn't say that in this case also you can't give something against somebody against his will? So we can't prove anything for there. Any case, any situation, good morning, Boker Tov, Jeff, any situation where we learn, Rashbag says the halacha in our Mishnah, halacha chamos, so the halacha is like him, put me Erev Tzidon v'Raya Achrona, except for the case of the Erev, the Arev, the Tzidon, and the Raya Achrona. So first of all, what's the case of the Tzidon? Goes back to the case of our Mishnah, where there's a dispute in our Mishnah, which we did yesterday, that if a man says to his wife, you're divorced on the condition that you give me this coat, this itztuis, this cloak, and then the exact cloak is lost, can she give the money in place of the cloak? Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says yes, and the Chachamim say no. So we see that in this case, the law is not like Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, that you have to give the exact quote or else you're not divorced. Whereas, so the halacha is like the Chachamim means dafi, you have to do the exact circumstance there. The case of the Arev and the Tzidon, the Arev, we learned this case of the Arev, that is whether you can go and claim the money from the guarantor before claiming the money from the person himself, or either that's okay. And the Raya Chorah refers to case in Sanhedrin that if the person admits in front of the court that he has no other proofs for his claims, and after case he wants to recant and he say he has a proof, well, it's like the Chachamim that we don't listen to him, and not like Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. So in those three cases, the law is not like Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. But in the rest of Shas, whenever Rabbi Shimon Gamliel argues with their mission, the law is like him. So back to Gittin, back to Masechet Gittin. We're in the middle of 75a. So the Gemara brings a brisa that discusses about a case where the following case: Tana Rabbanan, a man says to his wife, "This is your get, Vanir Shalei, but I'm not giving you the paper." He says, "I'm giving you the get, but the paper belongs to me. The parchment's written on." The problem is, the Torah says, Rashi says, Vinasam the other, he has to put it in her hand, but he's not giving her anything. Rashi elsewhere, let's see if we have this Rashi here. This is a beautiful, Meiri quotes the Rashi from elsewhere. Sherei lo nasan ra ela osios parchos. He gives her the osios parchos. The only thing he gave her was the letters floating in the air. He only gave her the letters floating in the air. We also have that case, I think it's from Chanina ben Taradio, and they say, we had this recently on the Sarah Rugi Malchus, that when he was burnt with his Torah scroll, he says to his daughters, "What do you see?" She says, "I see the Torah, the parchment is burning, but the letters are floating in the air." So Osios Parchos Bavir. So he didn't really give her anything because in this case, because the letters are floating. Therefore, she's not divorced. But let's say he says, "Amanasha tachzirli esaniyar migurashes." But let's say he says, on the condition that you return this paper to me, then she is divorced. So in the first case, he says, the paper is mine. It's not a divorce. In the second case, he says, on the condition you return to me the paper, she's divorced. The Gemara asks the question, what's the difference between the first clause and the second clause? And Raj says the assumption of the Gemara here is, Almanas, when it says on the condition, it doesn't mean it's not like Rebbe. Rebbe says Almanas means from now, but it means when you give me back the paper, then you'll be divorced. And if that's the case, why is she divorced? But in the time of the divorce, she's not holding anything. So the Gemara's assumption is that this case is like Rebbe, like the Rabbanan, in which case it's only when the stipulation takes effect that she would be divorced. But in that case, then he hasn't given her anything. So the Gemara says, no, so he says that this price is like Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, where he says the Amar Titin lo estamel. Rabbi Shpag says you don't have to give the exact code, you can just give the value. She doesn't have to give him back the exact get, she can just give him the value of the get, so he did give her something. So Abaye challenged this. Maybe Rashbag says that you could just give the value where there isn't the where the code is not yet in existence. It's not still in existence. Would Rashbag still say then where the code's in existence that he could give you the value of the code? So therefore, the Gemara says, okay, so this is the position of Rabbi Meir, who says that throughout Shas, it's really not just Rabbi Meir, it's really almost everyone, says that throughout Shas, we need, in order for a stipulation to be valid, it needs to be what's called a double stipulation. If I do this, then this will take place. But if you don't do this, then this will not take place. So this has to be like Rabbi Meir. And since there wasn't a Tanai Kafel, then and here he didn't double the Tanai. And so therefore, in that case, since he says on the condition you return to me the paper, but he doesn't make it a double conditional clause. So therefore, it's as though there's no condition at all and it takes effect right away. Whereas in the first case, there was no condition. He just says the paper is mine. And so therefore, it's not a valid get. So Maskava Rava, so Rava challenges time of the Lokafa tonight. He means to say it's, the reason why it's valid is because he didn't make it a double tonight. So therefore, there's no tonight at all. Hakafa tonight, but if he didn't make it a double tonight, lo avigita, then it wouldn't be a get at all. Michti called tonight mehecha gamrina. But where do we learn every case of a conditional clause? Mitanai b'nei gad b'nei Reuben. That's the whole concept of a tonight kafa. We learn that from the sons of Reuben and b'nei Gad and Reuben. They said, if we go into the land as the vanguard and we help you conquer the land, then we get to inherit the land. But if we don't go in, then we don't get to inherit it. But so we learn everything from there. Ma hasam tanai kodem amai. So there, the condition came before the action. If we go in, then we get the land. If we don't go in, we don't get the land. Af kol tanai kodem amaisa. So therefore, in order for it to be a valid condition, a valid stipulation, conditional clause, the tanai has to come before the action. This excludes this case, the maisa kodem lo tanai, that the action came before the condition. Because what does he say? You're divorced on the condition you return to me the money. Well, that's totally different. You're divorced on the condition you return to me the money. It's a totally different case. Ela Marava. So therefore, Rava says, so what's the reason here? What's the reason why in this case that she is divorced? Mishum demaisa kodem l'tanai, because the action comes before the conditional clause. And so therefore, since the action comes before the conditional clause, so therefore we're going to say, so since the action comes before the additional clause, and we're going to say the conditional clause is not relevant, and so therefore the get is a kosher again under these circumstances. So Mazka for Ravada Barava, time of the Maisa Kodem L'Tanai. You mean to say that what's the reason why this is a valid get? Because the condition is rendered useless because the action came before the condition. Hatanai Kodem L'Maisa, but if the conditional clause would come before the action, Lo Avigita, it wouldn't be a get. But that doesn't make sense because Mifti called Tanai Mehecha Gamrina. Where do we learn every conditional clause from? Mitanai B'nei Gad B'nei Reuben. But from the condition of B'nei Gad and Reuben. But Ma'as and Tanai B'davar Echad and Ma'isa B'davar Echad. But there, the condition and the action were two separate actions. One was if I am the vanguard, then I inherit the land. Two completely different things. But Afko. So in every case, it has to be, two discrete activities. The condition and the action have to be two discrete things. That comes to exclude this case. That here they're the same thing. Rashi explains on the top of 75b. Beget atzmo hu hatanai lachziro v'hu amaisa lios get. That both the condition is you have to return the get, and the action is that you will be divorced. So so what's the reason why the get is kosher? So what's the reason why it's a valid get here? Because the condition and the action happened on the same activity, and so therefore it's not a valid conditional clause, and so therefore the condition is rendered moot, and so therefore it's a valid get. So the Gemara says, Rav Ashi himself gives a different answer. He says, I'll tell you why this is a valid get. He says, because this is not going according to the position of the Rabbanan, who says that takes effect when you fill the condition, that's when the whole process begins, but rather it follows the position of Rebbe. Whoever says Manas, it means like it's happening from now. And so therefore, as Rashi explains, that during the time of the divorce, she was holding the get. And afterwards, that's where the get takes effect. And afterwards, she fulfills the condition. And therefore, is like a gift on the condition that you return it, and that is considered a gift. Okay. So that's why it takes effect in this case, and that's why it works. So now Shmuel teaches us a beautiful teaching. It's Kin Shmuel Begita, that Shmuel instituted by every get of a shtimler, of a person who was sick and he was worried he's going to die, so he wants to put a conditional get. He says that you should say, Im mati lo ye get. If I don't die, this will not be a get. V'im mati, but if I die, yeah, get. If I die, this will be a get. So he says you have to say, if I don't die, this will not be a get. If I die, this will be a get. So the Gemara says, "V'leima mati I get, v'im lo mati lo ye get." Why doesn't he say it the opposite way? Why does Shmuel say specifically that language? So the Gemara says, "No, well, matim inish barunu so an A person should never say the bad things to happen to them first. You always have to speak in a positive way. Always say the good things first." So he says, "If I don't die, this will not be a get." Okay, and if I die, this will be against you. Always don't put the perunuso and actually don't put the punishment first. Mar says, okay, but still I have another way you could do it. Velema, well, yeah, get imro mesi. Why don't you just say this will not be get if I don't die? So the Gemara is, because he says, Shmuel says, well, yeah, he says imro mesi, well, yeah, get. So why? But why don't you say the opposite way? Why don't you say, well, yeah, get this will not be a get in Will Macy if I don't die? So the Gemara said, no, but tonight called the Maisa. We need this conditional clause first, and that's your death is the conditional clause, and the get is the action. So that in order to be valid, that's how it needs to do it. So Maska for Rav, so Rav challenges. Call tonight me tonight b'nei gada be'ruben. Ma hasam hein called the Mulav af kol. Ma fukei acha the Rav called the Mahain. So in that case. Don't we run out everything from Bnei Reuben and Gad, and there the Hain came before the Lav. The yes, if I go into the land and then the vanguard, then I'll inherit the land, and if not, I won't. So here too, also we should put the yes before the no. El Amarava. So therefore, Rava says you have to say the following: Im lo meisi lo yeget, im meisi yeget. If I don't die, this will not be a get. If I die, this will be a get. But that is just so you're not saying the punishment first. And then you say, and then after you say that, it may see a get. Wait, you say, imro may see get, it may see a get. And then you say, imro may see lo ya get, imro may see. Hold on. El Amarava, Rava says you have to say the following. Imro may see lo ya get. If I don't die, this will not be get. It may see a get. If I die, then this will be a get. And then im lo mesi lo yeh get. You have to go back and say it again. Im lo mesi lo yeh get. Why do we say it the first time? Because lo matim inish perunuso nafshe. You can't put the bad things first. But from the perspective of a conditional clause, it doesn't matter there. And then im mesi yeh get. And lo mesi lo get. Va'inin hein kodem ulav. So you need the yes before the no. And so that's how you say it. Okay. So, all right. Now up to the next Mishnah. Says the Mishnah. So the Mishnah says, I give you my get on the condition that you take care of my father. Or almanas shetaniki espini, or on the condition that you nurse my son. So if that's the case, so how long does she need to nurse him for? Shtei shanim. She needs to nurse him for 2 years, and that's how she fulfilled her condition of the conditional clause. Because that's the amount of time that the child needs, generally speaking, to be nursed. And so once she fulfills those 2 years, and the stipulation has been fulfilled, and she's divorced. Rabbi Yehuda says Shmona Chodesh. Rabbi Yehuda says 18 months. Mesa ben Osha Mesa Av. So let's say the son dies before he's able to be nursed for that amount of time, or let's say the father dies. Then we're going to say it's a valid get immediately, because since she didn't explicitly state the time of the nursing or the serving, since he didn't explicitly state the time of the nursing or the serving of the father, then for sure his only intent was that the time that it's needed. And so since he died at that point, there's no more reason to fulfill the conditional clause. Yeah, it was similar. So then the person says, or let's say he says, this is your get on the condition that you serve my father for 2 years, or on the condition that you nurse my son for 2 years. So then we say under those circumstances, Mesa Ben. So under those circumstances, we say if the hold on. So he says, so he says, this is your get on the condition that you serve my father for 2 years, or on the condition that you nurse my son for 2 years. So if the son dies, or the father says, I don't want you to serve me anymore, and it wasn't that she did anything wrong, ain't no get. then under those circumstances, it's not a get because he said specifically for 2 years. Or Shimon Gamliel says, no, in this case, it's also like a get, because that get, if it wasn't the reason why she stopped it, then it's considered a get. So the Gemara says, do we really need do we really need to nurse him for such a long period of time? Do we need to do this attending to the father and for 2 years, or nursing the son for 2 years? Do we really need that? There are many. Didn't we learn Shimashto Yom Echad? They need to Yom Echad. I raise a get. That once you do it for 1 day, or you nursed him for 1 day, you've done it. So why do you require the 2 years? So So one is the position of the Rabbanan, and one is the position of Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. Meaning to say, Masnis in our Mishnah, that is like the Bryce says, our Mishnah is like Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. Our Mishnah is like Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. Bryce is the Rabbanan. Our Mishnah that says that whoever makes a stipulation that he's accepting the get from the condition of the support from the woman, he means to say for his benefit, and so therefore, as long as he needs it. Whereas the Brisa that says it's enough as 1 day, that's the position of the Rabbanim. They say that he says specifically just a small aspect of it. So the Gemara says, but it can't be. I made the safe for Rabbi Shimon Gamliel from the fact that the last clause in the Mishnah is like Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, where he says there that as long as she didn't cause the delay, we're going to say it's a get. So under those circumstances, Mikla, the Reishal of Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, that proves that the first clause is not Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. So therefore, the Gemara says, Ela Braisa, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, he the makeup tonight. The Braisa is the position of Rabbi Shimon Gamliel because he is lenient with respect to a stipulation, with respect to a Tanai, with respect to the cloak, he says just give them money. Whereas the Masnis in our Mishnah, it says that you have to nurse for as long as you can, for the 2 years, as long as he needs it. That's the position of the Rabbanan who say specifically that cloak. That's the first answer. Rava says a different way to resolve this tension. Our Mishnah is talking about a case where the husband didn't specify. And so therefore, you have to do as long as it's needed. Whereas the Brisa refers to a case of Mefarish, where he's explicit that it needs only 1 day. That's the second answer. Rav Ashi brings a third answer. Kol stam nami k'mefarish yom echadam. Rav Ashi says, whoever makes a stipulation without, he argues with Rav. He says, no, if you don't say anything, then it's like you said 1 day. So therefore, the Bryce and the Mishnah are the same thing. And the Gemara challenges Rav Ashi. Tanan from our Mishnah, Kama Yiminika. So Shtei Shanim, Rabbi Yehuda says, Shmona Asar Chodesh. Bishlam Rabbi Nicha makes sense. According to Rabbi, he says you stipulated there. El Rav Ashi Lamali Shtei Shanim, Lamali Shmona Asar Chodesh. But according to Rav Ashi, that it's 1 day. Why do you need 2 years? Why do you need 18 months? If you didn't specify, either 1 day would be enough. So the Gemara says, no, he means to say, that's what the Tana says. Yom echad mishtei shanim, 1 day from 2 years. But after 2 years, it's pointless. Yom echad mitoch shmona esar chodesh. But after 18 months, it's no good. So the Gemara says, well, we'll challenge Rav Ashi from this safe of our Mishnah. Ain't no get. So that's the last clause of the Mishnah. So the Gemara says, Bishlam Rava, it makes sense that the Reisha is B'dulo Parish and Sefer the Parish. The Reisha is where you didn't specify the stipulation, and so therefore we say he said it could be any time. But the Sefer is where he clarified it. Rav Ashi, who says that even when you don't clarify it's 1 day, Maishna Reisha, Maishna Sefer. What's the distinction? Gemara says, indeed, Kasha, it's a question on Rav Ashi. And we'll stop here. I don't know exactly what time we'll teach. We're going to do the daf yomi tonight. I have to see my schedule.